Hello, everybody. I'm Robert Dilts,
And I am Steve Gilligan.
and we welcome you back to this second broadcast here of helping yourself and helping others. I want to, of course, start by apologizing for this delay. We had we have an international team working on this, and there was a blackout in St. Petersburg, which, of course, is the a good example of the kind of uncertainty and challenges that we face today. Um, I also want to acknowledge that we have our 8 interpreters we are simultaneously being interpreted into 8 languages as we speak. And so we will be speaking a little bit more slowly and pausing so that our interpreters have the chance to, make this transmission to you all. Uh, Again, these are challenging times, and part of what we want to offer you is a way to be able to creatively and actively, manage these kinds of challenges that we will be facing, probably in an increasing way. Yesterday, we started with 2 possible steps that could support you. The first was what we called the coach state, which is a state of coming into a place of calm presence where we are able to be with whatever turbulence is going on around us. Coach is an acronym for 5 fundamental qualities of our inner being. The first to be centered, especially in the body, centered in our physical center in our belly, to be open to possibilities, to creative possibilities, to be alert and aware and attuned to what is going on inside and around us, and then to be connected to our resources both inwardly and in our environment around us. And then from there to be able to hold whatever is happening from a place of resourcefulness and awareness of creative possibilities. From this state, we then invited you to make an intention to hold this question: what is it that I can do to help myself and to help others?
Hi, everybody. Wow, we are in quite a challenging time. Who would have thought 2 months ago that we would be having this conversation today about this crisis? Interesting. We are the creator beings. Most of the time, we don't have to do much with that because we can just use our automatic patterns that have worked before. Sometimes we can't use what we've done before. In fact, probably everything we knew as ordinary is not coming back as ordinary. So we have the challenge of going forward into new community, new connections, new possibilities. We can do this. We can do this. To do it, that's what we're talking about, how to get from this little self that's isolated and up in the head to this bigger self that's connected to all of life. Golda Meir, when she was Prime Minister of Israel decades ago, was once asked, Prime Minister, when you have a problem, who do you talk to? She said, that's easy. When I have a problem, I talk to 2 people. I talk to my grandmother. I talk to my granddaughter. My grandmother who's no longer alive. My granddaughter who's not yet born. To that, I would say, let's talk with all of life. with nature, with our families, with our communities. That's where we find our creativity. President Kennedy, many years ago, said, "We will put a man on the moon." And we did. Martin Luther King said around that same time, "I have a dream." And he spoke it with such passion and such dedication that it began this huge shift that we haven't completed, but it's in action. This is the challenge we face today. We can do it. Let's do it.
And in order to be able to do this and to accomplish things that, as Steve was giving those powerful examples of putting somebody on the moon, of changing our society, we need to be able to have a way to move from a big dream, from what is possible in our imaginations, to make it possible and to bring it into our concrete daily life. And that's what we want to cover in this module, in this session with you. What are some of the steps, the concrete, practical steps that we can take in order to create these new realities? And what we're going to do is to guide you through a 6-step process that we've created that we use in our own coaching practice. And these 6 steps are, again, about moving from creative imagination to practical applications. The first 2 steps are essentially what we were covering yesterday. We'll be reviewing them again, this notion of going into a state of creative, open, aware presence, kind of connecting beneath and connecting beyond the turmoil, the turbulence, so that we can have a calm and grounded mindset from which to operate from. The second step, again, is setting an intention. What is the direction with which we will be guiding ourselves? And again, that's that question, what is it that we can do to help ourselves and to help others? The third step, which we'll be exploring the new part today, is how we come into a powerful generative performance state to get ourselves into a creative place of flow. And from there, we go to the fourth step, which is to really begin to move to action, to begin to plan specific steps from which to execute, with which to bring into being this direction and this vision that we have of possibilities. We like to say we move from dreamer into realist. Mm. And very often when we begin to move into realist, we meet what is in our fifth step, which is what we would call the critic. We meet the inevitable obstacles, the interferences, the resistances that come both from outside of us, but also within us. And we're going to present a couple of ways which you can creatively meet and form a relationship with these obstacles, so that instead of being a problem, they become part of a solution. We do a kind of what we would call a type of Aikido. We join and then transform these obstacles, and they become part of our team. And from there, we go to our final step, which is to then establish practices that will deepen those changes.
Wow, I just understood the generative change model. So let's start, as we did yesterday, the first step, coach. I'm going to guide you with slightly different, but find a good place to be with yourself, to claim as your own space. Find a good posture where you can be relaxed, open, but aware. And let yourself take a deep breath. And then say something to yourself like, I bring myself back to myself. I bring myself back to the connection to all of life, all that is good in the world. I bring myself back to that. Relax your body, calm your mind, open your heart, feel your creative power. So in that place of just following your breathing is the most important thing. The relaxation in your body is the most important thing. Now we're going to add just a few sort of seeds or ingredients to help that coach state. The first is the seed, total relaxation in the body. You're not ordering this, you're not demanding, you're taking it like a seed, lifting it over your head, dropping it in. Total relaxation in the body. Total relaxation in the body. The second seed, complete calmness in the mind. You can do this again and again. We're just doing it in the interest of time briefly. Calmness in the mind. Third, opening of the heart center safely, deeply. Feel the heart open into the world. 4, feel a positive vision of what you want to create in your own life, with your loved ones, with the world. I hold a positive vision in my heart. And then 5th, I bring that into the world. Today, I bring that into the world. That's step 1.
And from there, we go to step 2, which when we think of how we bring that into the world and what exactly we will be bringing into the world, this is the notion of what we would call a creative intention. Now, we use the term intention here instead of a rigid goal, because as we know, in this days of uncertainty, of change, where everything changes moment by moment, if we fixate on one particular form of something, it's likely to create problems, challenges, disappointments. So we need to be able to have a focus, a clear, direct focus for change that gives us an opportunity for a lot of flexibility. We'd like to call this in our generative change work disciplined flow. So step 2 is to really get a clear sense of what is it that I want to create? What is it that I want to do? And this has to do with that question that we've been bringing, which is, what can I creatively do to help myself and to help others? So in this coach state, from this place of centered openness, awareness, connection, we hold that question. And then we begin to let an answer come. And we let it come in 3 ways. The first is in words. What would be some very simple words of what you could create, what you can do. We usually like to say 5 words or less. What is the simplest way that you could express what it is that you can do to help yourself, to help others? There's so many wonderful examples. I read recently of a group of 300 engineers who got together to simply find a way to create masks that can be done through 3D printing. So again, what could be some things that you can concretely do? 5 words or less. And then what image comes of that? What mental picture can you begin to form? either a concrete picture of what you might really do, where you can see yourself taking some positive action, or it could also be a symbolic picture. Maybe you see something more as a symbol or a metaphor. But what is it that you can do to help yourself and to help others in this time of challenge? And finally, we let a gesture come. What would be a movement or gesture that expresses that intention, that expresses that direction? Make that with your body.
Great. So we find that connection deep within ourselves to all of life. We sense the positive intention we want to live. And now we prepare ourselves to actually bring that into the world. We can't just know it or feel it inside. We have to be able to bring it out into the community. So this third step, create a generative state. Our basic prototype is there's 3 parts. Connect to your center, connect to your positive intention, connect to your resources. So usually I invite people to do this standing. I don't want to stand because I might mess up the recording, but you might stand. Take a deep breath, say center. There's something I want to bring into life. Now, start with, I bring my hands, my mind to my center. Breathe, open. And you're looking to just attune to that so that you have on a scale of 1 to 10, at least a 7. That will indicate you're ready for creative action. I bring my hands to my center. I take the time to find the attunement, mind and body world. Second, intention. And here we're going to ask you to find a posture and a movement. I make a commitment to bring this into the world. I will bring this into the world. So from your center, find a posture. Not I hope, or maybe it would be nice. I will. Relaxed, centered commitment. I will. And then third, sense who can support you. Ask and open. I can't do this by myself. I open to all the people, the places, the things, the traditions, the teachers, the loved ones. And I call upon them to support me. Center, commitment to action, community of resources. That's the third step.
And our fourth step is holding these 3 connections, as Steve said, at a level of at least 7 out of 10 or more. Connection to myself, connection to that commitment to my intention, and that connection to the field of resources that support me in this process. We then begin to move, as we say, to realist. There are several ways that we can do this. Certainly one is we want to really bring our attention and our energy into our physical body in that sense of action. And as Steve was saying, very often when we stand to do this generative state, when we begin to move into action, it can actually be very helpful to make what we would call a timeline. Now you can make a timeline physically if you're standing by literally moving forward where the future is in front of you, the past is behind you. And if you take steps into the future, if you take steps forward, it's as if you're moving into your future. You're thinking, what's step one, step two, step three. You can also do an internal timeline, a mental timeline, where again, you might imagine, you see your imagination, that the future is in front of you. For some people, they imagine it's off to the right or at one of the sides. But now, as we hold that sense of that intention in front of us, what is it that I want to create? We want to begin to find a set of steps. Now, key to generative change is that this is not just a mental, cognitive, sort of verbal left brain type of planning. It is actually what we call making a storyboard. We literally are putting ourselves into that future. We're not just thinking about it or talking about it. We want to really project ourselves so that we see what we see, we hear what we hear, we feel what we feel. And for each step, for example, if you were to take your first step, how would you state that step? What would that be? My first step is what? And what image would I see? If I say those words and I really project myself into that first step, seeing what I would see, what's there? What do I notice? What happens? What do I hear? What am I saying? And then what am I doing? And you find, what's the image that represents this first step? What kind of picture? And again, it could be a literal picture of what you're doing, or it could be a symbolic picture. And then finally, find a somatic movement, a gesture, a posture that represents that step. And then you would keep taking step 2 and 3, each time finding your words, your image, and your gesture.
That's great. So, center, intention, resources, take action. This is something you can practice on your own multiple times through the day. As we go on the creative path, we come up against many obstacles. And the bigger the challenge, the bigger the obstacles. And we have a big, big challenge. So we're actually going to focus on this next step, transforming obstacles, 2 times. I want to focus first, as we go to step into new territory, we run into emotional wounds or emotional fears that hold us back, that divert us. We want to connect with those, bring those into our coach state, transform them into resources. You can do this. You can do this. So let's sense yourself on that timeline. This is what I want to create. I have a commitment to action. And then sense, where do you start feeling shut down, block, fear, anxiety, distraction? And say, that's interesting. That's where the deepest part of my creativity lives inside of my soul. In order to make that soul energy human, we need to bring human positive connection to it. So as you sense, this is what I want to do, but let yourself bring your hands to that place where there's fear, numbness, and find your coach state. Bring it into your coach state. Say to it, welcome, welcome. I give you a place of honor on the team. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And continue this until you find, just like you were talking to a horse or a dog or a cat or a young child, that kind, loving connection begins to shift it into a beautiful, loving resource. That's the first way to work with obstacles.
This notion of creating a space, we might call it a guest house, so that we can be with whatever is there without having to become it, without having to fight it or get lost in it. And once we have that place where we can hold it and be with it from a bigger coach state, we can then begin to bring other resources to it. We like to say, if you meet an outer obstacle with an inner obstacle, you have basically an unsolvable problem. But if we can meet an outer obstacle with our inner resources, we have a potentially achievable challenge. Now, as human beings and mammals, even beyond that, we are really born with 3 archetypal creative energies. And every animal, when a baby is born, it has these. We can connect to these energies, and these are how, throughout millennia, we have evolved to find creative solutions. And the first one of these archetypal energies is what we like to call fierceness. There are other terms for it as well. Sometimes we would say it's about strength, or it's about our inner power. So we bring this energy of commitment, of courage, of certainty, determination. And this is going to be one way that we find solutions, through our courage, through our commitment. A second one of these energies, this archetypal energies, we would call tenderness or softness. And this is where we bring our gentleness, our nurturing, our nourishment to something. We let go, we soften, we are receptive. And that's another way that we transform obstacles, that we create new possibilities, is through our loving kindness and presence. Third energy that we use to solve problems, and again, from the moment we are born, is what we call playfulness. This creative, playful, light, joyful. It's this sort of this energy of possibilities, of sparkling. So what we would just want to invite you to do is, when you meet some of these things, find your anchors for these 3 energies. Think of a time and think of a role model for yourself for this grounded, committed strength. What is courage like? And find your somatic model for that strength, that courage. And then do the same for softness, tenderness. Find your somatic model for that softness, openness, tenderness. And then playfulness. And whenever you meet an obstacle, you can find, as you cycle through those, they will each give you new possibilities.
So these are the core steps. We encourage you to share them, practice them for yourself, share them with others. Take times during the day to go through this process in your body, in your mind. Center, positive intention, creative state with resources. Take specific actions. Feel the obstacles, find them in yourself and heal the wound. Sense them in the outside world and do the dance of creative transformation. Is that great or what?
And of course, we like to say that you become what you practice. And so one of the interesting questions is, as we bring this particular broadcast to start to bring it to a close, is what is it that we commit to practice? We can practice complaining, we can practice anxiety, we can practice blaming, or we can choose to practice to be the best version of ourselves that we can be in whatever situation life brings us. And of course, not only practice in isolation, but with others. And one of the reasons that Stephen and I founded this International Association for Generative Change is to create a community of people that support each other in these actions. Like my example of the 300 engineers who met on Facebook. We want to create now communities of all of our, not only our generative change practitioners, but others who can benefit from those. So we want to offer you some resources that you can use and take advantage of. We have our Generative Change website, IAGC.info, also generative-change.com. You will also find resources on both Stephen's and my personal websites, StephenGilligan.com, RobertDilts.com. And we also have our local regional representatives will have Facebook sites. We also have our IAGC global Facebook site. So there's many resources, and we will also be letting you know through our social media of what resources are possible.
So in ending, we want to just share a brief little poem by the great Persian poet Rumi. Mm-hmm. And he says, the breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you.
Don't go back to sleep.
You must ask for what you really want.
Don't go back to sleep.
All night long, people are walking back and forth across the threshold where the two worlds meet.
The door is round and open.
Don't go back.
Don't go back to sleep.
Don't go back to sleep.
Don't go back to sleep.
Let us all use this crisis to awaken, to connect, to bring new life and community into the world.
And new creative possibilities to help ourselves and to help others.
Thank you to everybody. Special thanks to the technical people, interpreters. It's quite
our fabulous interpreters. So we hope this is a beginning of a new and creative journey, not only for ourselves and for you, but for our whole world.
Thanks. Take good care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.